Ever since I started playing Commander, I've regularly seen and heard discussion, civil or otherwise, about how certain cards break the Singleton nature of the game. During my earlier years as an EDH player, the cards most often at the center of these discussions were tutors, functionally identical cards, think Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, and Fyndhorn Elves, and the subject of our video today, Relentless Rats. Seeing its initial printing in 2004's Fifth Dawn, Relentless Rats is the first card to feature an ability that states that you can run any number of them in your deck. This ability circumvents the 4 of limit in 60 card formats and the Singleton rule of Commander, where you do still need to meet the deck building requirements of having exactly 100 cards. Which unfortunately means Battle of Wits is still useless in Commander. Relentless Rats has seen many reprints over the years, including in 2007's 10th edition, 2009's Magic 2010, 2010's Magic 2011, 2018's Masters 25, Time Spiral Remastered in 2020, various list reprints, a special guest spot in 2024's Bloomburrow, as well as quite a few Secret Lair appearances. July 21st, 2006 saw the release of Cold Snap, which featured the unique mechanic Ripple. Ripple is one of those mechanics with the numeric value attached to it, and every card with the mechanic printed on it is set to 4. So reading the reminder text for Ripple 4, it says, when you play this spell, you may reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may play any reveal cards with the same name as this spell without paying their mana costs. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. This mechanic is important to the history of Relentless Rats and similar cards, because there's an artifact that gives your spells Ripple 4. Thrumming Stone. This 5-drop legendary artifact revolutionized the game for Relentless Rats. I mean, sure, it was bad in 60 cards still, because it was an 8 mana investment during the days where Mirrodin was still part of Standard. However, with the growing popularity of Commander, Relentless Rats and Thrumming Stone finally found a format where they could be seen as more than just that silly little meme deck with no real potential. And the casual nature of Commander really helped solidify its place in the format. Like, sure, it's still a meme deck, but it still posed a threat to casual tables. And this growing popularity for this silly little meme deck that now can kind of caused an increase in demand for Thrumming Stone, which only has its original Cold Snap printing, a list reprint, and a double Masters reprint in 2022. It wasn't until a full 9 years after the original printing of Relentless Rats that Wizards decided to print another card that shared its unique property, Shadowborn Apostle. Unlike Relentless Rats, whose only other ability is to just get big for every other Relentless Rats you have, Shadowborn Apostle has a activated ability that allows you to tutor for any demon in your library as long as you have 6 of them to sacrifice and 1 open black mana. And so because of this difference in ability, I find it really hard to say that Shadowborn Apostle is a spiritual successor to Relentless Rats, and more of a sister card to it. It wasn't until a full 5 years after the printing of Shadowborn Apostle that Dominaria gave us the true spiritual successor to Relentless Rats with Rat Colony. Rat Colony is a full black mana less than its predecessor and gets +1 power for every other rat you control, regardless of its name. More similar to how Pack Rat buffs itself without the increased boost to toughness. While certainly seeming to be the trend, this seemed to solidify the ability to run any number of a certain card as belonging to solely black creature spells. However, the following year would prove otherwise. January 25th, 2019 saw the release of Ravnica Allegiance, and with it came the printing of Persistent Petitioners. The blue 2-drop became the first non-black card printed with the ability to run any number of them, which combined with its second ability to tap 4 of them to mill someone for 12 also gave mill players a new powerful build for their, at the time, struggling archetype. The card being a different color also led some to speculate on whether we would ever see all 5 colors with the any number ability. They wouldn't have to wait for very long, since later that year, Wizards printed yet another card that breaks normal deck building rules, except this time with a hard limit. That October, Throne of Eldraine gave us the red card, 7 Dwarves, which lets us run, well, up to 7 of them. This limit meant that while it technically broke the rules of Commander deck building, it wasn't quite egregious enough to justify running Thrumming Stone. It wasn't until April the following year that the first red card to be viable with the artifact was printed, Dragon's Approach, the 3-mana burn spell that can pull a dragon from your library to the battlefield by exiling 5 of them from your graveyard. This sorcery was the first non-creature spell you could play as many as you wanted in a single deck. The increased frequency in the printing of new cards in different colors, with the ability, seemed to speak to Wizards' desire to finish the cycle the petitioners seemed to tease. The once unique mechanic of Relentless Rats was becoming a full cycle. The Universes Beyond set, The Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, was released on June 23rd, 2023, and with it came Nazgul, the second and currently only other card to give you a limit you can run that's greater than most formats allow, while still giving a hard limit, capping at 9 total. Unlike its spiritual cousin, 7 Dwarves, Nazgul featured 9 unique arts in both normal and showcase treatment. And while 9 copies is too few to reliably get the most out of Thrumming Stone, the card is still highly sought after due to its high power, the evergreen appeal of Lord of the Rings, and the amount of consistency they bring to a deck. Also, there happens to be a combo that involves Ratadrapic and any free sack outlet. 2024 was a huge year for Thrumming Stone, giving us 3 separate cards with the any number ability. The first was released in February with Murders of Markov Manor. Slime Against Humanity is a green sorcery which makes 0/0 token with 1/1 counters on it equal to the number of copies of it in your graveyard, or, most notably, in exile, making it the first card to synergize with Thrumming Stone to care about exile. Universes Beyond Assassin's Creed brought us our second card of that year, and our first white card with Templar Knight, which has Vigilance and an ability to tutor a legendary artifact straight onto the battlefield, similar to how Shadowborn Apostle does with demons, and Dragon's Approach does with, well, dragons. The third and final card of 2024, and the most recent at the time of recording, is Heir Apparent, the second white card and a 2-drop 2/2 that makes 1/1s equal to the number of other Heir Apparents you control. Heir Apparent is the first creature with the ability to have any number of them in your deck to have an ETB on it, and it's an ETB that makes tokens, which is far more abusable by flicker effects, bounce effects, cloning and copy effects while on the stack, as well as cards like Panharmonicon and token doublers. One thing I can say for certain, Heir Apparent has become a very sought-after card by many EDH players, and has been a topic for discussion lately, especially with it being printed in the standard legal set, Foundations, that came out in November of last year, which is still fresh in a lot of players' minds. And with the sudden prevalence of cards like these, there's been an increase in discussion revolving around the counterplay specifically for these decks. In my honest opinion, the best play into these decks is to hold up some spot removal for Thrumming Stone, and try to apply a ton of pressure on them. There's typically not enough recursion in these decks since they tend to be all in, and with the exception of Relentless Rats and sometimes Slime Against Humanity, going wide into them will either take a chunk of their life or thin their numbers down. Also, I say this as someone who runs a Thrumming Stone deck with like 40 Relentless Rats in it. I fear nothing more than a board wipe or Cyclonic Rift, especially after spilling my entire deck of rats on the battlefield. Also, I found Suture Priest type effects that deal damage to your opponents whenever creatures they control enter the battlefield are really scary. And cards like Spell Shock also really just... Using Thrumming Stone into them is basically suicide. Especially since Ripple casts each spell that it hits. It really sucks. Thanks for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you like this kind of content and if there's anything you'd want to hear me talk about in the future. I hope to see you for the next one. Bye!